Hello everyone, welcome to a new language study vlog. It has been a hot minute since I recorded one of these, and this video is not going to be very similar to my other language study vlogs because for once I actually have a study plan that I'm going to follow, which sounds so unlike me because as some of you guys know, I am very unstructured when it comes to language learning. I don't really have a language that I stick to. I constantly switch them. I don't have a study plan. I don't have a language exam that I'm working towards. I could be studying every day for 2 to 3 hours for a couple of weeks and then completely stop studying for like 5 months. And honestly, this is the way that I've enjoyed language learning in the past. Like if I'm in Thailand and I want to learn Thai and then I go to the Philippines and I'm in a region where they're speaking Bisaya, I don't mind switching. Like I find enjoyment in that. I feel like it helps me get closer to the people. It helps me understand the culture better. And I have so many of the basics of so many languages, but I do feel that it has definitely prevented me from actually making any progress with the languages that I want to learn long term. So for example, French is a language that I really want to be able to be fluent in. And because I've been kind of on and off studying, sometimes adding in a new language, not really having a set plan, I haven't really made any progress. Like I've had a lot of study sessions, but without some sort of structure, like at least a little bit, I'm just constantly losing the progress that I'm making. Okay, it is the next day, and yesterday I forgot to mention that I don't actually have a specific study plan that I'm following because ironically, I don't really know how to make a good study plan because I've never actually followed one. So even for example, the Notion pages that I've shared with you guys that I use for language learning, I use those pages to document what I have done rather than plan what I'm going to do. So I still use those pages all the time when I study, but I haven't actually ever made like a good detailed weekly plan. So in this week, like I said, we're figuring it out. But yesterday we studied French for about an hour and a half. I ended up starting the assimil method. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but I've heard a lot of amazing things about assimil. So in my own words, and I might be missing some core concepts here, assimil teaches you to speak a language through dialogues where each dialogue gets progressively harder. There's 100 lessons, therefore 100 dialogues. There's audio that comes with the dialogues. Yesterday I did 4 lessons. Technically, you're supposed to do 1 lesson per day. In the beginning, I'm speed running a couple of the lessons. Like I might be doing 2 to 3 lessons per session just because with French, I'm not a complete baby beginner. I'm a false beginner, if that's what it's called. Like I have some experience. I studied French in high school. I forgot like all of it though, and I've studied it myself multiple times after that. But like I said earlier, I kept losing progress. So the first couple of lessons I think are going to be a little bit easy for me. So I'm going to do some of them quicker than intended. So we're going to see how that goes. Today so far, I just had a little bit of a Spanish session in the morning. I was doing some crosswords, and I have done crosswords on Linguno before, but I was doing them for Portuguese and for French, and I would always do them from English to French. So it would be like the word in English and I have to then translate it into French on Linguno. But with Spanish, because I'm an upper intermediate / advanced and I'm quite comfortable in Spanish, I decided to do the Spanish crosswords from Spanish. So instead of seeing an English word, I'm just seeing an explanation of the word in Spanish, which honestly, I expected to be very easy, but I struggled with. Not even because of the language itself, but just because I'm not good at crosswords. Like for example, one of the questions today in the crossword was ¿Qué hace Merlin? I don't know who Merlin is. The answer was magia. Obviously, I know what magia means. Like that is not a difficult word for me at all. But ¿Qué hace Merlin? ¿Quién es Merlin? So the crosswords earlier only took me about 13 minutes, so we still have at least around 45 minutes more of study left for today. So what I'm going to do for the rest of that time is we're going to speed run the grammar of Spanish. I learned a lot of Spanish through speaking and listening, and yes, there was some grammar lessons here and there. Like I did do Spanish for my high school final exam, but I don't know. I really feel like I do have some grammar gaps. So what I'm going to do for that is there's a website called studyspanish.com, which has 108 free grammar lessons, which are very short and concise. But if I quickly go through every single lesson, I'm going to see if there's something that I may not really know. Good morning. It is the next day. Yesterday, I ended up studying Spanish for about an hour and a half. So as you saw, we had our little crosswords, we had our little grammar speed run, which we're going to get into in a minute. But I also watched some videos on LingoPie because I was feeling that I'm not getting enough input in. I feel like I'm at that point where I should be honestly listening and reading Spanish all the time. Like either a podcast or reading a book or watching TV shows and movies on LingoPie. Like I should be constantly doing that. But because I recently just started the French assimil method and then I started the new grammar speedrunning thing, I feel like my brain was a little bit tired. So I needed some way of relaxing and just enjoying some content while also learning in the background. So Lingopie was like the perfect middle for that. And Lingopie is actually the sponsor of today's video, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys because it is a total game changer for language learners. So if you haven't heard of it yet, Lingopie is a platform that lets you dive into your target languages through movies, TV shows, music, short stories. So it's kind of like learning and entertainment all kind of rolled into one. So how it works is if you're watching a TV show, for example, you're going to see subtitles in both your target language and English, and this is fully customizable. So if you want subtitles just in English, you can turn off your target language. If you want your subtitles just in your target language, you can turn off the English. And as you're watching, if there is a word or a phrase or something you don't understand, you will just click on that word and it will show you the meaning. It will show you any other relevant explanations that you may need. And then it will automatically save to a flashcard deck so that it doesn't interrupt your flow of watching. But after the show ends, you can still review those cards. So you're not going to forget this new word that you just learned. And then after watching, there's so many fun ways to review these words. So for example, they have like the sentence wizard, flashcards, pop quiz, word master. And one of my favorite features is for all their TV shows and movies, they show what accent is primarily used throughout that TV show. So for example, for me, it is most important to learn Spanish from Spain because that is where I'm more likely to use it. So I want to hear people using the vosotros form and using the slang from Spain. So I just choose Spain as the country and I will then see all the movies and TV shows and music that comes from Spain, which is very, very, very useful. So yeah, if you want to make your language learning journey a lot more enjoyable and a lot more fun, then I would really recommend for you to try out Lingopie. There's going to be a link in my description where you can try it out. And yeah, thank you Lingopie for sponsoring this segment of the video. Anyway, I also wanted to share with you guys what I learned through my little grammar speedrun yesterday. So in the, I think like 45 minutes that I was doing the grammar speedrun, I got through 21 lessons, which obviously that is very fast, but the first lessons are very, very simple. Like it's all about how to conjugate the present tense and how to use the and how to use a, like very simple things that I already knew. So I was mostly just skimming, like I wasn't reading the whole text because some of the lessons were quite long. But I do think it's gonna take me 6 to 7, maybe 8 sessions to get through everything because there's 108 lessons. And I'm sure that as we get towards the end, there's gonna be a couple of lessons that I actually need. And the thing is, for each lesson, it's not just the text lesson. There's also like 5 quizzes after. So I'm sure as I get towards the end, it's gonna take me a lot longer to complete these lessons. And actually, I did learn something from one of those 21 lessons that I didn't know before. It's not like a huge point, but it is something that I've noticed before and I didn't really understand. And that is why very, very, very rarely a descriptive adjective is placed before the noun rather than after, because most of the time it is placed after. But sometimes I would see it before and I didn't really understand why. And their explanation is that it is mostly for emotional and poetic effect, which now makes a lot of sense because now that I realize I do see it more in that context. Like I just don't see it used day to day. Moving on to today, we're studying French today. I think we're gonna go back to the assimil lessons. I might do something else as well. I think I'm gonna go study in a cafe because I want a little bit of a different environment. But we have to make a study plan, guys, because the whole point in this video was that I'm finally making a study plan and following that study plan. But there isn't actually like a set study plan yet. There is a rough study plan. Like I know that I'm trying to study every day, minimum 1 hour per day, and we're mostly alternating Spanish, French, but there's not like a set plan. So we have to do that later. Maybe I'll start working on that in the cafe. Okay, it's been 2 days and I did make myself a little study plan in that cafe, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. But later that day, I came home and I had like a very nice, cozy French study session. So I was doing my assimil methods. I had my tea, I had some pan de sal, which was amazing. And I was working on my lessons. So I was reviewing the assimil lessons from before and starting new ones as well. Technically, you're not supposed to start reviewing previous lessons until you get to lesson 50, but I was kind of reading what different people's approaches are to this assimil method, and some people were saying that they prefer that when they do the next lesson, they also review the previous lesson, and then once they get to like lesson 51, they also will review lesson 1. So it's kind of like double the review, but I do think it's better, because I found that every time I review the day before, there are like 1 or 2 things I get wrong. Usually, this is very specific, but usually it's with accents. I basically try to translate the dialogue from English into French and I write it out myself. And what I realized is that when I'm reading it myself, I can fully understand the dialogue, but when I have to translate it from English to French, I always get all the accents wrong. I wrote down just from the last 3 days of doing assimil, every time I review it, these are all the accents I keep writing wrong. Like I keep writing this instead of this. And it keeps happening. I don't know why with French accents. It's just like I don't have an understanding of where the accent goes and which accent it is. And then after the French lesson, my dad called me and we speak to each other only in Russian. So that was about like 50 minutes of pure Russian practice, which I know it's so weird to count a call with your parents as language practice, but it is. Like my Russian is just not as good as it used to be. And then after that, I also called my mom. But with my mom, it's a little different because she speaks to me fully in Russian, but I respond to her in like 80% English, 20% Russian. So I counted half of our call as Russian practice, because for half of the call when I was talking, I wasn't speaking Russian, but at least I was listening and I was replying a little bit in Russian, but just a tiny bit. And then also last night was kind of my day off, but I still wanted to get a little bit of study in. So I did a little bit of Russian reading practice. So I have a Russian book that I'm reading and I just imported it into Link and I'm just reading it on Link, like pressing on any words I don't know. So yeah, that was my study for the last 2 days. Today, I'm gonna study French again, but that's for another video. But let me share the little study plan that I made in the cafe. Now, this is not like a final plan. It can always change a little bit, but for the time being, this is like the rough guide of a plan that I'm gonna be following. So it's a little different from what it was earlier, because before I said that I wanted to study every single day for an hour a day, but I kind of changed that. I think I would prefer to study 6 times per week because that's much more realistic. There's always going to be a day where I don't know, I'm not in the mood to study or something. So we're aiming for 6 times per week, 1.5 hour per day. So in total, 9 hours, but this can be very flexible. So for example, if I miss like 3 days of study, I can make up for it in the hours. So essentially we're just aiming for 9 hours per week. And the way we're going to roughly split the time is I'm going to do about 5 hours of French, 3 hours of Spanish, and 1 hour of Russian. So for Russian, I'm just planning to do 1 hour of reading out loud on Link per week. And I'm also going to try to text my mom only in Russian. And anytime I talk with my mom, I'm going to try my best to only speak in Russian. But with voice messages and texting and stuff, I'm obviously not going to track that. That's a little bit like too specific. But the 1 hour of reading out loud, I want that to be like a proper session where I sit down and read out loud. Then for Spanish, we just have to do 3 hours per week. This is the one that is the most flexible, because for French, I kind of have a plan. And for Russian, I kind of have a plan. Like I have a specific book that I'm reading and it's not really going to change until I finish that book. But for Spanish, it's very, very flexible. So I just want as much input as possible. So I'm going to be watching like TV shows and movies on LingoPie, listening to podcasts, reading some books on Link, speedrunning, the grammar thing that I mentioned earlier in the video, and doing the crosswords that I was also doing. So it's kind of like, what am I in the mood for that day? What do I feel like I need? What do I feel like is missing? So my Spanish study for now is going to be very, very flexible, not as structured. But I feel like this is nice because for French, for example, I have a very specific structure that I'm going to follow for the time being. So it's nice to have some structure in one language and then more flexibility in another language. And then for French, for the 5 hours that we're studying per week, for now, we're just going to focus on the assimil course until we get to lesson 50. Once we get to lesson 50, we're going to reevaluate and I'm going to see, okay, do I want to add something else in? Is this working for me? Like, is this course super efficient or do I want to switch? But for now, we're going to commit until lesson 50 because I have so many amazing resources that I want to use in French. But that is the problem because I keep switching between them. So what happens is like I start using a new resource and then I'm doing all the beginner lessons there. And then I'm like, oh, there's this another amazing resource. Let me start using that. And then again, I'm in the beginner phase of that resource. So I think for now, I just need to stick to one, even if it's not maybe the best because it's just one. But I think assimil is like a good, well-rounded course because I'm getting vocabulary, I'm getting listening, I'm practicing my speaking by like repeating after them and reading out loud. There are some like grammar notes and not much grammar exercises. I think that's the part that is going to be missing the most from the assimil course. But with grammar, I can always catch up when I do like another grammar book or something. But for now, I think it's like a very good, well-rounded course, and it's very structured. It's very simple to follow. Like I just have to do lesson after lesson, review the lessons before, and when I get to lesson 50, we will reevaluate. So yes, that is my plan. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see more like this. I think I'm gonna film another language video soon because I'm very much in a language learning mood again recently, which is very good. Thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you guys next time. Peace out, much love, bye.